ain't taking those from nobody.
Jalen Brown.
Your superstars have off games.
Follow us on social media at Celtics Talk Weekly. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to a Celtics post-game live. I am your host, Rob. I am with my co-host, Celtics Everyday, a.k.a. Seamus. Ian will be joining us very shortly. The Boston Celtics lose in what was blowout fashion, because kind of tables actually kind of flipped here. Celtics dropped in the second half, just like we dropped it against them, or they dropped it against us on our home court just around a month ago, 102-77. Tatum looked phenomenal, 34 points on 13 of 22 shooting. 14 of those came within the first 4 minutes of the game, and no one else really decided to give him any support. The bench did, give us something in which would have helped if, we had Brown playing. Obviously, Brown doesn't play. Schroeder only gives us 10. Horford only gives us 7, and Smart only gives us 6. There's not much Jayson Tatum can do. On the flip side of things, Lakers, LeBron had 30. Westbrook had 24. Davis gave him 17. Lakers only scored 117. That is around 10 to 15 more points than I'd like. Seamus, what are your initial thoughts from the game?
Well, we should have brought this up in the pregame show, but the points in the paint battle was very stark tonight, just watching it via eye test. But if you actually look at the numbers, points in the paint tonight, sorry, I'm on the wrong page here. Points in the paint, they easily outscored us in the paint tonight. 66-42, that was the final number in the paint tonight. The last time we faced the Lakers, I believe it was somewhere around 58-32 in the paint, somewhere around that number. I believe it was an 18-point margin, actually, at the time. So the Celtics, they were completely manhandled in the paint tonight. And you look at second chance points, too, 18-6 favoring the Lakers tonight. In the second half, it all fell apart in the third quarter for the Celtics. The Lakers made a huge adjustment where Russell Westbrook was a huge part of the game, where in the first half, the Celtics were giving him a ton of space to operate, but he was taking those three-point shots, those open three-point shots the Celtics were giving him. But in reality, in the second half, he went more towards what he's best at, which is slashing, scoring at the rim, and obviously dishing to other players and playmaking. And that was a huge factor in why the Celtics couldn't pull out this game, or didn't pull out this game, because they just – I thought they were out-coached to a certain extent, and they were just manhandled in the paint for the entire night.
Yeah, and just like that, the Celtics dropped to the 10 seed in the Eastern Conference. That's how it's going to work in the Eastern Conference kind of all throughout the season. Seeds 4 through 10 are going to be, half a game back throughout the whole course of the year. Celtics do play the Clippers tomorrow night. Same time, I believe, 10 o'clock. Must-win game tomorrow night for sure. 10:30 is tomorrow night's game, actually, a very late game. Clippers also 13-12. I don't want to overreact to this loss. I don't think, if you look at this is the first game. I think Atlanta was another game where you kind of felt the presence of Jalen Brown, the effects of Brown not playing. I mean, people got to realize that's your second best player. And I mean, he was playing the best to start the first 10 games of the season. He was the Celtics' best player. So not having him does really make a difference. However, no excuses. I'm not, making any excuse. The Celtics really didn't come to play in the second half, couldn't properly figure out the Lakers' adjustments, and I think that ultimately led to them losing. And, I think it's really, really important here, Seamus, that Celtics pick up, keep their heads up. Yes, it's a loss. It's an 82-game season. Against a Lakers on the road, that happens. That's a game where, it's a rivalry game on prime time. And, against LeBron James, that's a game where you kind of got to nod your head and say, okay, we're on to the next one. You got a tough 4 games coming up here. You got the Clippers, Suns, Bucks, and Warriors. Let's try to get 3 out of those 4 next games.
Yeah, and you talked about it. They mentioned on the TNT broadcast tonight, Jalen Brown's going to be questionable moving forward, or for the foreseeable future, which sounds like forever, really. And you mentioned Jalen Brown, the absence of him was evident tonight. And the reason it was so evident is you mentioned the Atlanta game too, where the Celtics need to come back. And this was similar in the Atlanta game where they were down double digits for most of the game, for about 75% of the game, like tonight. you need that extra scoring punch
Yeah.
from your team to get past the hump. And tonight the Celtics just didn't have it. If you look at their whole lineup tonight, Robert Williams 13, most of those came in the first half off of lobs and putbacks. I mean, he put on a show in the first half, but I'm not even sure if he scored in the second half, to be honest. Tatum 34 tonight, 14 of those came in the first quarter, and then he kind of cooled down for a portion of the game right up until the fourth. Marcus Smart, 2 of 7, 0 of 2 from 3 tonight, only 6 points. Dennis Schroeder, only 10 points tonight. That really killed the Celtics. And then off the bench gave us more than 30 points, I believe 32 points, but a lot of those came fairly late in the game when garbage time was imminent. So the Celtics scoring punch just wasn't there in the moments they needed it. And also the Lakers defense, got to give the Lakers a little bit of credit here. I mean, they totally ran the Celtics off the floor tonight, and it started on the defensive end of the floor. They were getting turnovers, getting runouts, and just converting off those opportunities for most of the night. And the Celtics, I wouldn't be too concerned with a loss like this because of the circumstances. I mean, this is the third game of a West Coast road trip. It's the first night of a back-to-back. They had to wave the white flag a little bit earlier. It seemed like, maybe there was a chance they could have came back there at the end because the Lakers were giving them every opportunity at the beginning of the fourth, but eventually time just ran out. And I think the Celtics are still trending in the right direction. Still would like them to be healthy, obviously, but, tonight, this is your second game against an experienced seasoned basketball team. As much as we clown the Lakers, LeBron James and Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook, those are all hugely, hugely effective NBA veterans. And they got us the second time around, and give credit to them. But I still think the Celtics, 13-12, you have a chance to rebound now tomorrow night and put this loss in the mirror. And like you said, going forward, just focusing on the next game, and then obviously the stretch after that. That's just what the Celtics have to do right now.
Yeah, and the Celtics need to finish off this. I mean, I'm gonna say these next 2 games are must wins. I don't know the status of Devin Booker. I'm actually gonna look that up right now. But obviously tomorrow night against the Clippers. Clippers are another team that a very beatable team. Booker will remain out Monday. All right, so Booker is still ruled out, not even questionable yet. As we're approaching Friday. However, as for the Clippers game tomorrow night, I think it's really important the Celtics come in knowing that this is a very losable game. It's an extremely winnable game, but it's a game just like tonight. You go in and you don't play a complete 48 minutes of basketball. Paul George and Reggie Jackson, those are type of guys that are going to make you pay. So, I'm not too going to overreact to this loss. Obviously, Lakers, Ian's sad. Lakers rivalry game on TNT, and you hate listening to Stan Van Gundy talk harshly upon the Celtics like they do any chance they can get. However, we got games coming up here that the Celtics are really going to be tested on. Something I do want to talk about is Jalen Brown. I think it's completely ridiculous that over a week ago now he returns to the lineup for 2 games, and then Boston pulls him, and it looks like they kind of re-aggravated that hamstring and regressed him. I think that Brown, if it was that bad, then he should have sat out until December. He should not have played that week span where he played. I'm pissed off because I'm hearing these reports coming out that Jalen Brown is fighting to play. Well, if your star player is fighting to play, if he claims he believes his body is ready, then why are we holding him back? And on the contrary, right, why is it that we pushed him back when maybe he wasn't ready a week and a half? It's just, I don't know what this Celtics injury and health and staff is doing, but it just seems like time and time again they're dropping the ball, and this is trending in the direction this year. I remember, Seamus, you asked me a question as soon as Brown got hurt, is it time to worry about Jalen Brown's health? And I said, no, it's not. I won't worry until I believe there's a reason to worry. Well, right now I'm starting to worry because it's been some time now. This was supposed to be an injury that we believed. It was leveled as, I want to say, the lowest possible grade hamstring injury, and it's almost approaching on 3 weeks now, almost a month that Jalen Brown has been out of the lineup. And, if this was really just a hamstring injury like we were made it out to be, he would have already made his return. He would have been kind of approaching on 100% now. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, if this is going to be a constant trend where Brown is in and out of the lineup, the Celtics could actually be in danger because that puts them in a massive hole. We saw what tonight is going to, this is very possible for another game like this to happen in these next 3 games because Brown's a high-level player and Schroeder's a great third option and Smart's a great fourth option. But, to ask Schroeder and Smart on a night-to-night basis to be second and third guys, it's just you're going to have these games more often than not then that they come in here and, they struggle because they're not your second and third guys. They're your third and fourth guys. And I think Brown's hamstring is starting to worry me. The fact that, if he's claiming he wants to play and the Celtic staff is saying no, it's just not adding up to me.
Ian, you wanna get in on this action real quick?
Yeah. I'm disappointed. I really am, because I don't know. I might have to retract my statement from earlier today when we talked on the pregame show.
We can't overreact and retract from
overreacting. I'm just saying.
I'm
just saying because the Celtics were very disappointing tonight, and I mean, it's not a trend. They had a rough game. The Lakers played good defense. Tatum did well. He actually shot really efficient tonight, so that was good. I don't know, man. The Celtics defense looked terrible tonight, especially in the paint. It just looked like the Lakers got whatever they wanted tonight. LeBron looked like he wasn't even sweating. Like, he looked like he was just going through the motions tonight, and he was still dropping 30 points. But I don't know. It was a rough game. It was a rough game, and it just kind of sucks that it was like another chance for the Celtics to move up and like maybe legitimize themselves this season at least once.
Well,
and it just felt like that they couldn't do it this time. But same thing with you about Jalen Brown. I'm getting kind of concerned because there's like hamstring injuries are nothing to play with. I mean, you can even see. Let's look at the Patriots for example. Damian Harris is the running back. He's been dealing with a hamstring injury. It feels like the whole season. He's missed a couple games in between. He tries to play through it, and then last night against Buffalo, he gets hurt and he's out for the rest of the game. So hamstring injuries are nothing to play with, but with Jalen Brown, it feels like they're fumbling the ball on this situation, and it's kind of getting frustrating to watch because Jalen Brown is our second best player. He is an all-star. He has the potential to be a superstar type player, but it feels like the Celtics training staff has no idea what they want to do with him, and then Ime Udoka has no idea what he wants to do with him once Jalen Brown says he's healthy. So I don't know, man. I'm hoping Jalen Brown can come back as soon as possible, as healthy as possible, because the Celtics need him. And you made a good point, Rob, that there was a Jalen Brown size hole tonight in the Celtics team.
Yes.
And God, he cannot come back soon enough.
I want to throw out a stat here. So besides Jayson Tatum tonight, the Celtics shot 17 for 50 from the field and 3 for 20 from the threes. Now, that goes back to my point where the Celtics without Brown, when Brown's not healthy, can compete on a night-to-night basis. We've seen how great they could play against the Jazz. They played well. They buckled down on the defensive side of the ball against the Sixers, and then they came in and got the job done against Portland, right? So those were 3 games where they looked really good. But when your star players are not playing, every 5 games, there's going to be 1 or 2 games where your bench guys have an off night. And when Brown's in the lineup, it doesn't hurt because he's getting you 25, 30 points. So that Dennis Schroeder 10-point game is very, 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 very acceptable. But when Jaylen Brown is out, and Tatum is only one producing offense, and Horford isn't giving you 20. There needs to be a second source. And if Brown is going to miss games, right, then Schroeder needs to be on his A game every single night. And I'm not blaming Schroeder. Schroeder's been great, I think. But, I think it's time. I don't, I'm not saying jump ship or anything, but I do think there's some things you could look at here that are being exposed without Brown in the lineup. I don't know. I thought Robert Williams had a solid game offensively. Defensively, he has been absolutely something's been up. He hasn't been the same the past 5 games he's played in. I think you're starting to see Horford's age a little bit more as the season goes on. And yeah, but I mean, other than that, we're onto the Clippers.
Well, I think we're kind of overreacting about this Jalen Brown situation now because I was concerned about this injury when he was coming back to play. I didn't understand why he was playing. I thought he should have sat out more games if he wasn't fully healthy or he was day to day. That means he's not healthy whatsoever. And we saw him, he didn't look the same. He looked hobbled, and now he's out again. I I don't know why he's questionable. That's more of my whole question in this whole grand ordeal right now is why are we continuously leading the fans on as if he's going to play when in reality he should probably miss this whole West Coast road trip, and he's on pace to do that right now. And I just believe Jalen Brown right now, we don't need to overreact because he is sitting out. He is resting that hamstring, and he's not coming out here and, you know, further risking injury. And I think right now, too, with Jalen Brown, it's December. Playoffs are in April. We have literally 4.5 months until the playoffs come again. So I want Jalen Brown healthy when that comes around rather than right now. I know it's frustrating to see him out of the lineup, but we've seen this team from Josh Richardson, Dennis Schroeder, Al Horford at times, Robert Williams can at times. All of these guys can score points and put up points on the board alongside Tatum and can make up the difference. They just didn't do it tonight, and that's where Brown's absence is so glaring, is when they don't do it. But this team has the ability to right the ship even when guys are out, and we've seen it before. We've seen it the last week or so when Jalen Brown's been out, or before when he was out for that 8-game stretch. And I feel as if we're overreacting a tad about his injury. It's bad right now. I would say he's nowhere near healthy, and that's concerning. And I say it would be very, very concerning if he was still dealing with this, though, in, say, January or February rather than now. If he rests this whole month or rests half this month, I still feel comfortable about where the Celtics would be when he's inserted back into the lineup.
Yeah, and I think another positive that you want to get out of the Celtics fans is, something I've been talking about with the Celtics team is opportunity. There's a lot of opportunity in this month of December. Obviously, tonight was an opportunity to jump to that 4 seed spot, and they dropped the ball. However, there's another opportunity coming up here. The Celtics, they're finishing off against the Clippers, and then they got the Suns, and they got a little 5-game homestand. I don't know what Brown's injury situation is. If he's being listed as questionable, I would assume that he's a week away, a week and a half. I don't know. Like Seamus says, whenever he's ready to come back, he'll be back. I think they tried him out a week ago and he wasn't ready, and they noticed that, so they pulled him. Personally, I wouldn't have tried him at all, but I'm talking about opportunity here, and I think that the Celtics are 4 games into December, and they've played, I'd say, a half of bad basketball. I think that the Celtics, defense, I think in the paint, there was some miscommunication. The Lakers went small, and this kind of goes back to my statement about this starting lineup, about my matchups. Teams might start going small on us with this double big, pull Horford and Williams out, and I think that Celtics could do something to fix that a little bit. I think there were some struggles in the paint. I think Robert Williams came out with a statement saying that there was just miscommunications on assignments, on rebounds, and that ultimately led to the Lakers controlling the paint. I mean, I don't think there's too much to take out of this game. The Celtics just let it slip away. Tatum has been phenomenal this road trip. I think the Clippers, it will be a more telltale sign how they're going to react and respond to a loss against the Lakers, and I think they've responded fairly well this season, would you guys say, the losses? So we'll see what tomorrow holds.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, outside of Tatum looking like the Jayson Tatum that we know him to be, which was a very good sign because it was fun. As bad as this game was, it was fun watching Jayson Tatum play basketball tonight. But I do agree with you on the Celtics being able to bounce back. I mean, this game kind of reminds me of that game against Atlanta earlier this year where we kind of got blown out for that most of that game, and then we kind of made a run at the end, but it really didn't matter too much. And the Celtics seemed to bounce back fairly well from that. And, I mean, obviously the Bulls game, we know what happened with the Bulls game, and we bounced back from that. So I don't have a problem with the resilience of this team. I am still a little concerned about the starting lineup. I don't
Yeah.
think we should play the double big. And honestly, it kind of, I don't know, I kind of came to a thought of, the Indiana Pacers are blowing it up. Do we go out and attempt to try to get Miles Turner? I'm not sure if
Not Turner.
I'm not sure what
Levert.
Miles Turner or Levert or, someone from that team, maybe even Sabonis. I don't think we have the assets for Sabonis, but who knows? But it's just like one of those things where it's like it feels like there's one thing missing. I don't know what it is, and I can't think of it off the top of my head or pinpoint it right now. I feel like there's something missing where like there needs to be a change in the starting lineup. There needs to be something that changes to where I don't know. It just feels like there needs to be a change right now. It feels like we're at a point where it's kind of starting to teeter on the downward spiral a little bit. So I feel like Ime needs to maybe reassess the starting lineup and maybe look over it again and maybe think of a better way to go from here.
Teetering on a downward spiral. We just dropped 145
I'm not teetering.
points.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying the Celtics are going to go on a 10-game losing streak. I'm talking about it's looking like they're starting to show some cracks a little bit. I'm not saying
I don't.
a huge
so,
issue. I'm just saying.
No, I think that the Celtics, that lineup has shown offensive weaknesses. I think defensively they've been pretty consistent. I would agree in the sense where I also am thinking, is that double big lineup really ideal? At the same time, you look at their lineups, and Horford or Williams only played 24 minutes. So sure, they started the game together, but in the long run, Williams was only out on the court 24 minutes. Personally, the more I'm looking at this, the more I'm thinking about it. I would start Langford at the 2 when Brown comes back. I think that the Celtics, if that lineup of Smart, Langford, Tatum, Brown, and Williams would bring a lot of athleticism and could speed up the pace, I think that would open the court up a little bit. Which the Celtics have actually, been very successful when the game's fast. However, I would not say we're downward spiraling.
That's not what I meant to say. That's not what I meant by downward spiraling. I was talking about the starting lineup starting to show cracks a little bit in. I don't know. It just feels like the efficiency of it is starting to show cracks. I'm not saying they're like going to start being a terrible unit. I'm just saying there is some glaring weaknesses. It feels like they're starting to become glaring weaknesses.
Well. So there was a state. Real quick, Seamus. Sorry, real quick. I'm gonna send it right over to you. There's a quick statement that the Celtics player came out with today. I don't know. I didn't see who said it, but they did say they felt like they're on a brink of a big run. That's what the statement said. So I think this team is confident.
No, and I'm not saying they aren't. I'm just saying like.
I would say this team is definitely confident in where they can go because we saw it in Portland. I mean, this team there's some solidarity to this team rather than what we saw last year where that team didn't look together whatsoever, or even going back all the way to 18-19, that team didn't look together at all whatsoever either. But this team, there's some chemistry there. However, the two things that this team is missing, specifically on offense, number one, more reliable shooters. I would say, obviously, through 20 games, we were 29th in three-point percentage. I don't know what we are now, or 5 more games in, but that was only 5 games ago. We're missing clear shooters off the bench. I know Josh Richardson can be good at times, but he's more of a streaky shooter. Dennis Schroeder can be streaky at times, and he's not really your spot-up guy. He's usually more operates in the mid-range, and, he handles the ball a lot, so he's distributing a lot. So we need spot-up shooters, and we need straight-up more. I've been screaming about this for about a month and a half now. We need more off-ball movement and more off-ball cutting. I don't understand why that's so hard to implement in the NBA for some of these coaches, but like I love that Ime came in and brought the Celtics back to their defensive status they once had with Brad Stevens. They're one of the top defensive teams in the league. Obviously not tonight though. And I love that he did implement ball movement into the system, something we didn't see a lot of last year. But there's still lack of pick and roll, and there's a lack of off-ball cutting and off-ball screens and just off-ball movement in general. And that's, if you look at the best teams, that's really what they excel at. The Milwaukee Bucks, the Phoenix Suns, the Golden State Warriors, they all excel in those areas. Even the Brooklyn Nets, they all excel in those areas of the floor. And the Celtics, that's just what they lack. They lack shooters, off-ball movement, and that's really the two things that I would say going into the trade deadline or going into trade season now, passing the December 15th deadline, of which all these free agents that were signed over the summer can now be traded. That's going to be the two things that the Celtics, one's more of an in-house fix and the other is more of a structural roster fix in which they can achieve, because they do have salaries. Like we should have a conversation about this potential Miles Turner, Sabonis, LeVert situation, because they do have the pieces to go out and make some type of move at the deadline. It's just
Totally.
not clear what the market will look like quite yet.
Yeah, and something I do want to touch on is that I think this team has looked actually really, really good. I just think that it's like, I'm not one for excuses, but I feel like recently you see just they get momentum in the Brown. I hate to go back to the Brown injury. It's like I think right now what the Celtics are feeling is like they're getting progression, they're getting momentum. Oh, I'm going to pull you back. Jalen Brown's hurt, right? And I'm tugging. They're making progression. Oh, well, you forgot, Brown's hurt. So I do think one of the problems, I agree. I think Langford has been phenomenal when he's cutting back door. Opposite side, weak side cuts have been amazing. He's made multiple times where you see him come in and he goes up and makes a play, whether it's an offensive rebound or if it's a dump down pass. I think the shooting, I think you should look into Karis LeVert. I don't know what the asking price will be. I would assume, honestly, if I had to guess, I would assume he'd be packaged in a deal for Simmons, along with maybe I'd say Brogdon. I don't know. I don't know on the inside. If we could package, I'd say around two first round picks and maybe a Pritchard for him, or throw in I don't know what the asking price would be. If we could make a move for a LeVert, or I think Sabonis would be a guy. I mean, I'd give up Horford to make salaries match. Give them picks, as many picks as they want, and maybe a young guy or two. So, I do agree. I think there's a lot of opportunity, again, for the Celtics to make a couple roster just tweaks at the deadline to maybe, kind of make it a little bit stronger and set in stone this depth. But at the same time, Celtics 13-12, 10th in Eastern Conference.
I still think we're competing for the championship this year. How can you not? It's Jayson Tatum and Jalen Brown. They're 25 and 23 now. Jayson Tatum will be 24 by the end of the season. You have Schroeder. If you keep Schroeder past the deadline, I think this is what makes this next stretch here in December and January so compelling, is because this team should be a competitive team to the point of they can possibly win the championship. If you look at the whole landscape of the NBA, I mean, there's new teams coming to power. It's not like we have that old team that we're going, all right, they've done it before. Maybe the Milwaukee Bucks, probably the closest team to that. But I think we can hang with Milwaukee potentially. I don't know throughout a 7-game series, but that's what makes these next 2 months so compelling, is by the deadline, are we going to be that team that desperately tries and goes and buys players like we've seen other teams do in the past, like in 2019, back when the Bucks acquired Mirotic and the Raptors acquired Marc Gasol, who is a huge part of their championship run. The Sixers obviously are always acquiring talent at the deadline. Thinking back to that 19 deadline, they acquired Tobias Harris and obviously Jimmy Butler earlier that season. Like, there are teams who, if they feel they're in position to go out and potentially win the title or even make it to the finals or make it to the conference finals, they'll go ahead and capitalize on that. And the Celtics, they really didn't under Danny Ainge the last couple of years, but now Brad Stevens is at the helm. He's shown to be a little bit more frisky. If this team is well above 500 in that 4 spot or even that 5 spot by February, I think there's a legitimate argument that the Celtics could possibly make a deep run if they make some sort of move at the deadline that changes the complexity of their team or strengthens whatever the strength of their team is at that time. And we're 13-12. We're really far away from that point, it seems right now, but it's not out of the cards. I still think, we have these expectations of a 500 club when we're hovering around 500, but let me tell you, it's early. We're only 25 games in. There's 82 games in a season. It's early, and we've seen these teams before. Like this team doesn't feel like a bad team. It doesn't feel like a bad team. It doesn't have the vibe of a bad team. Like the 18-19 team, they just had an up and down. They never had the consistency ever. And then you look at last year's team. That team at one point, you just knew they were done. They just had no energy at points, no effort, and it was done. But this year's team doesn't have the vibe of a 500 team, and or really the talent of a 500 team if you look at their roster and the play. But it's just still early. I think the expectations should still be held higher for this team. But I there's going to be a telling period here very soon in December and January. And tonight, maybe that's part of it. Hopefully, this is just a blip on the map. Looking further, maybe we get a win tomorrow night, and that's just cancels out this game entirely, and we move on, and the Celtics are fine. Or this becomes a snowballing problem in which we've seen in the past. Hopefully, that's not the case.
Yeah, at the end of the day, your second best player isn't playing, so you're going to run into some bumps of inconsistency, and that's okay. But let's hit some over-unders here, guys. So the first over-under we had was Celtics 10.5 total points scored. Or, sorry, 110.5 total points scored. We all took the over.
We would have gotten that one.
Yeah, we would have. Yeah. We all took the over. We were thinking Celtics coming off two of the hottest games. It was kind of too good to be true, and Celtics did not. They almost kind of hit it towards the end with some last-second Pritchard and Neesmith magic. They fell short. They had 102, so we all missed there.
This was an opposite game for the Celtics. They won the first and fourth quarters and lost the second and third. It was a tremendous opportunity to gain 110 points. The pace was amazing tonight, but yeah, when you lose by 15 and you're not hitting your shots, that's what happens.
Yeah, so the next one was bench points over 30.5. I don't know if they actually have to check if they hit this.
They got 32.
They had 32 at the last.
So
they barely got over 32. Barely.
So
they hit 3 at the end.
I went under. Did you guys both go over?
Yep.
Yes.
So you guys both went over.
I was watching. This was the only win of the night for us, for me at least. I don't remember what the other over/under was. Didn't we have 4? Yeah.
So the other one was Robert Williams rebounds, I believe.
I took the under on that.
Yeah, so did I.
I took the over on that. I was wrong again. And the last one here was turnovers. We all took the under. They hit under. So Seamus and Ian, you guys got what? 3 points. I got 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was
Well, we had to bounce back from our terrible performance last game.
Yeah,
we both went 0 for 3 last game. It was not fun.
That was rough. I think I'm still above 500 though, right? Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, Celtics
We'll have to
will
go back and watch the tape.
Celtics would look to take on the Clippers tomorrow night at 10:30. I believe there will be a pregame show and postgame show, 10 o'clock pregame, and however late the postgame show goes, the show must go on. Obviously, we're going to close it here. Celtics lose 102-117 to the Lakers. Hopefully, they'll bounce back strong. Status of Brown unknown. We'll let you guys know on the pregame show. We'll see you guys then. Go Celtics.